Hello, everyone. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, depending on where you are. And thank you for joining me for this live stream tonight, where I will be initially talking about the interview of Tucker Carlson with Vladimir Putin. After that, we can dig into other subjects as well, and you can ask me any questions and participate in the conversation. So I watched the interview, which I think was good, because don't forget, they've banned RT, they've banned Russian mainstream media for so long now, and you don't hear the side that you should really hear when it comes to Russia. And how can you get an understanding of a situation or of a conflict or of a war when you're not hearing the other side, primarily when you're talking about countries that always preach and talk about freedom of speech and freedom of thought and people's right to know what the other side is thinking, yet it's somehow acceptable for people or certain networks to be completely banned. So this interview is very important, and I went through all of it, and I just want to speak about some highlights. Then you can obviously participate and let me know what you think, ask any questions, and we can talk about the latest development as well in Gaza and in Lebanon. We've had some very dangerous escalations. I posted a video about it earlier that you can watch after this live stream, but we can also discuss this in this live stream too. But going back to Tucker Carlson and Vladimir Putin. Vladimir Putin showed that he's more mature, reasonable, knowledgeable, and convincing than all of the Western leaders combined, by the way. And this is not a defense case, by the way, for Vladimir Putin here. But what do you expect from a leader? Knowledge, history, reasonableness, and a non-conflict approach when it comes to the people who are mostly opposed to you and have a very hostile approach towards you, which is what most Western countries had against Russia for the past many years, but it obviously escalated after the Ukraine invasion. But there were a couple of highlights. Now, he obviously started the interview with a lot of history about Ukraine. This guy went 1,000 years back, and he knows history so well. I mean, it's as if you were listening to a historian in many ways. But then he also started speaking about a couple of other things apart from Ukraine. One of the most interesting things he said in this interview was this particular sentence or a couple of sentences. Russia has been very loyal, and that's when he's speaking about Russia as the motherland and, the varied, religions and ethnicities in Russia. Russia has been very loyal to those who profess other religions, like Islam and Buddhism and Judaism. This is our strength. Main values are similar, which are traditional religions of Russia. Russian authorities were very careful to the religions of those who came to the Russian Empire. This forms the basis of both security and stability of the Russian statehood. All the people inhabiting Russia consider it their motherland. We are together in this one big family. Traditional values are very similar. This is the basis of our society. And if we say that the motherland and family are specifically connected with each other, it is indeed the case, since it's impossible to ensure normal future for our children and our families unless we ensure a normal and sustainable future for our country, for the motherland. That is why patriotic sentiment is so strong in Russia. Now, this statement on its own, if you think about it, all we hear in Western mainstream media against Russia is that this evil psychopath running Russia, typical, type of disinformation and propaganda. Yet this guy shows reasonableness. And I mean, he also asked him about China. And when he spoke about China, he says, we have a very long border with China, very long history with them. And we lived that coexistence with them. And when it comes to China and its foreign policy, it has a non-aggressive foreign policy. And think about it for a second. Who has an aggressive foreign policy? The United States, the UK, EU countries, France. These are the countries that have a hostile and aggressive foreign policy, always on the attack. The countries with a vast history of enslavement, colonialism, oppression, enslaving other people. So he defended China in many ways, and he even showed willingness when it came to Ivan Gershkovich, who is a Wall Street Journal reporter who was arrested and still imprisoned in Russia for espionage since 2023. I mean, the tone of Putin for someone who is in prison for such serious, crimes is very open. He said, in theory, wouldn't mind releasing him as a gesture if our partners, imagine he's calling the US and the West, who's been so hostile to him, our partners take reciprocal steps in reference to security services. I think in general it was really good. Obviously, you've had the propaganda on a high after this interview. The Independent went on highlights and saying that Vladimir Putin rants about Ukraine. The Financial Times says how Tucker Carlson became Putin's useful idiot. Things like that. Basic propaganda, lame, cheap journalism, typical. So I found it really interesting, and I think it's really important to obviously listen to the other side. I mean, ever since this war began in Ukraine, I mean, the main reason that they banned Russia and RT is for the Western populations not to hear the other side and what they have to say. And it's very, very harmful, in my opinion. So that's the main subject that I want to talk to you about. And we'll begin with the comments here. And if you have any questions about this topic particularly, or about the latest updates in Gaza or Lebanon, which I'm happy to talk about as well. Blank stares, greetings, Mahmoud in chat. I got a YT warning message to use careful words. Yes, absolutely. Relly M, thank you very much. That's so kind of you. Careful words, not to be offensive when making comments. I need to calm down, but when bad things are done, make us upset. I get it, yeah. And I mean, many people talk about YouTube, you know what I mean? And I've had stuff going on my channel. But I think what we need to understand is, when we talk about any situation, no matter how bad it is, it's still important to be mindful of the language. And to be honest, YouTube as a company, like, think about it for a second. It's a massive company with billions of users. They need to, that's not a defense case, right, for YouTube. Even though YouTube is my go-to platforms, that's why you see me here on YouTube posting. but they have to obviously take action to try and counter, either hate speech or everything to do with, trolling online or whatever it is. And I think it's important to be mindful of these things and maybe work on ourselves to articulate our way and express ourselves in a manner to bring about the message that we want to bring without being, offensive to anyone. We don't have to be, because we can bring our message in a respectful manner, even to the worst types of situations. So I think it's normal, and I obviously also made a couple of statements, especially with the live chat as well. This is a new channel. Asked the question: do you think Egypt will oppose Israeli invasion? Egypt opposed already the Israeli invasion of Gaza since the beginning. They opposed the operation about invading Gaza since the beginning. However, they had a heightened sensitivity towards anything to do with Rafah, because Rafah is part Gazan, part Egyptian. They know very well what Israel plans for Gaza. They've had a plan for 50 years, Israel, to expel the population of Gaza. Gaza has always been a problem to them. Strategically, Egypt as a state views Gaza as a front against Israel. One of the previous the previous intelligence leader in the Mubarak regime, Omar Suleiman, in closed doors, he used to say that they want there to be a strong resistance in Gaza to make sure that Israel is busy with someone else and not focused on us. Because if there is no resistance movement or anyone bothering Israel, so to speak, or just standing up against it, Israel would have time for Egypt. And Israel is an expansionist, colonialist country. And I'm saying all of this so that people can have the whole picture. And let's not forget, Egypt occupied Sinai. It only went out of Sinai after Egypt went to war with them and took their lands back by force, and then had a peace treaty with Israel, a peace treaty that's slowly crumbling in front of our eyes, primarily because of the level of unreasonableness when it comes to Israel. Israel is doing every single unreasonable step it can do to piss everyone around it, whether when it comes to Egypt, whether when it comes to Lebanon. They're making the United States angry with them. I mean, can you imagine that? The United States is the lifeline for Israel. They provide them with the military support, they provide them with the financial support, they provide them with the diplomatic support. They're pissing them off. They're ridiculing Biden, they're ridiculing Blinken. They're saying bad stuff about Blinken. He apparently tried to meet with the IDF chief. This was confirmed. They were really upset about it. They banned him from visiting Karm Abu Salim, which is the crossing between Israel and Gaza that has a link with Egypt as well. They're doing everything under the sun to make themselves look untenable. Going back to Egypt, very high sensitivities. Israel, since the beginning of this genocide, were looking to expel the Gazan population to Egypt. They didn't want the Gazan population to remain. As a matter of fact, and I will get to the military operation, every single thing that they're doing in Gaza is to make it a place that cannot be inhabitable for the Palestinians. They're cutting off the lifeline, they're cutting off healthcare, they're cutting off food, medicine. They've destroyed over 50% of residential homes. They've made 100.8 million people out of 2.3 million who were already consisting of 75% refugees. They made them refugees again. Every single person in Gaza has a martyr next to him, or someone injured, lost something, or multiple things. The campaign that Israel wants to do in Rafah is primarily targeting the numbers of refugees seeking shelter to force them to Egypt. Because they tried to convince Egypt to take them previously, Egypt knew the plan and they started talking, the Egyptian president, about their plans for the West Bank as well. They knew the plan very well, Egypt. They resisted it. As a matter of fact, since the beginning, Sisi told them, if you're worried and you want to have a military operation, take them to the Naqab desert. This is where they were expelled from. Bring them back to their lands, telling me to go to Sinai. Palestine is their land. They're not made to go to other locations in other countries. Palestine is their land. When the borders were down on the 7th of October, normal civilians started going in and crying, my land, I haven't seen it for 70 years. My grandfather was expelled from that town, and they want to expel them to Sinai. The immigrants from Europe who came and occupied Palestine. So Egyptians were aware of that. It didn't work. It didn't work even though Israel pushed the US, the UK, France, Germany, EU states to go and lobby in Egypt to force them to accept. And the Egyptian president again was very vocal about their plans and Egypt's refusal. And the argument was they want to completely get rid of the population. They won't allow them back. And if the population comes to Sinai, they will continue attacking Israel. Therefore, Egypt as a country would be in charge. And therefore, Israel would want to go and have a campaign in Sinai and say, hey, we're back to Sinai. And then they'll start telling you about Moses and their historical rights, like they do in Palestine. And people need to remember, by the way, they talk about Israel and the land of Israel. The holiest site for Judaism is in Sinai. Where were the 10 Commandments revealed? In Sinai. No, not in Jerusalem. So this whole, Jewish state is facade, lie, big fat lie. But now they're again taking it up a notch. They're telling Egypt, no, we're going to go in and we're going to start this operation. And even Netanyahu, one of the objectives of the military operation, he declared it was to do with the population in Gaza. It's as simple as that. As a matter of fact, he said specifically, it is impossible to achieve the war goal of eliminating Hamas and leaving 4 Hamas battalions in Rafah. Imagine the lie. A couple of days ago, you said you dismantled all of their battalions. What a liar. And then on the other hand, it's clear the massive operation in Rafah requires the evacuation of the civil population from the combat zones. Where are you going to evacuate them to? North Gaza? You're killing them on the way. You want to evacuate them to Sinai. So they're even declaring that they want to evacuate the civil population. That's their main aim, not Hamas. Think about it for a second. Firstly, you liar. You said you want to have 4 battalions left. You just said you dismantled all of them. Liars. But let's say you want to dismantle the battalions and you want to find the tunnels or whatever it is you're claiming that there is in Rafah. You haven't done that in North Gaza. You're still being attacked where you had a complete military operation. They're still attacking you in North Gaza, in Khan Yunis, in Gaza City, in Al Burej, in every part of Gaza. And you're telling me you want to go for Hamas? You've been in Khan Yunis for 4 months and you're getting whipped, right? Every single day. Today, Yasin 105 in tanks, in bulldozers, sniping them. And they're sitting there chilling, the Hamas fighters. It's not like this, they're hiding in a rush. They released a video today of one of their fighters drinking water and cleaning a bullet. So that means they have freedom of movement. That means they're comfortable over the ground and under the ground. And Israel is unable to accomplish anything significant militarily against the Hamas. So the whole operation in Rafah is against the civilians. It's against the population of Rafah. It is not against Hamas, like this whole war and genocide was not against the Hamas, saying that the Wall Street Journal reported that Egyptian officials said that if it reaches a stage where Israel's operation in Rafah, although they warned them about it previously, but you know Egypt, diplomatic till the last second, if it reaches a stage where the Palestinians would start going into Sinai in masses, the peace treaty will be suspended. Suspending the peace treaty between Egypt and Israel officially means one step away from war. When it comes to the Camp David peace treaty, a couple of weeks ago I spoke in one of my videos about a guy called Eli Dekel from the Military Intelligence Directorate in Israel. He was in charge of infrastructure in Arab states. He claimed that Egypt has over 60 attack tunnels that were 10 meters width and made to attack Israel in case we attack them in case we attack them in Sinai. So, indirectly admitting that Israel has attack plans against Sinai. And the level of military machinery, the level of soldiers that they have in Sinai, all of that in breach of the Camp David Accords, because it's supposed to be a demilitarized zone, Sinai. Ever since this Israel invaded Gaza, ever since this genocide began, Egypt has over 100,000 troops in Sinai. Now they sent more forces to the Rafah border. So it's a suicide mission for Israel. They're obviously not happy. The relations between Egypt and Israel are at the lowest they have ever been since they had the peace treaty, and it's not getting any better, and the Israeli leadership is totally and completely blind. Sister from New York, I wish Tucker Carlson would interview the Palestinian resistance and provide the same insight to the Western audience. That's the thing. Imagine that if they're banning Putin, do you think they'll bring the Palestinian resistance? Even though they should, really. I mean, you're talking about people who are defending themselves. And yet they're supporting the genocide. They're supporting the genocide state. Imagine a criminal organization having a state. And they're supporting them. It's completely absurd. Poker moves. Putin put Tucker in his place. Yeah, he did. Oh, one funny thing he said, Tucker Carlson. Putin was saying about religions that they have common values, and Tucker Carlson telling him, but do you think something along the lines of, but in Christianity, you don't have, violence because you turn the other cheek. Telling that to Putin. And he was telling him, how can a leader, use violence? And I thought to myself for a second, you had a president, George Bush Jr., saying that he went on a crusade war against a Muslim country, two of them actually. What are you talking about? And why are you getting this involved? Tucker Carlson still has this mentality from the Fox News days. Do you know what I mean? When you talk about this, if you want to talk about what religion and what type of religion is causing massacres, what was the religious identity of the people who caused the masked genocides in recent history? But we don't blame the religions, we blame the people who take the actions. Anyone can talk in the name of religion, whether it's a leader of a country, a state, a movement, and the leaders of states, boy, oh boy, are they more dangerous than some group, right? We blame the people who take political actions. Why are you shoving in, the religion? And do you know what I mean? It's just bizarre, really. Trabzon, do you think Rafah offensive will be a red line for Hezbollah? The red line for Hezbollah was declared from the beginning. Obviously, they entered the war in a limited manner to keep some of the IDF busy so that they don't take complete freedom in Gaza. They've exhausted about over a third of the overall resources of the IDF to the north. Their declared red line was, if we feel that Hamas is about or getting close to collapse, that will be the red line for them and for Iran. Clearly, that's not the case. Hamas is comfortable. They're still fighting left, right, and center. They took down over 1,108 Israeli machinery, including 962 tanks, recorded most of them with their own manufactured RPG missile with a double warhead. What are we talking about? They're nowhere near, they're in a strong position, Hamas. They have nothing to lose. But that's the red line for Hezbollah. So Rafah, if it escalates to a level where Egypt is pushed in, and if Egypt enters this war in full force, they will take down Israel in a matter of days, weeks max. If Egypt has air force, Egypt has air defenses, Egypt has tanks, and it has many, many people who do not like Israel. And their whole military strategy and training has been against Israel, the northeastern front, Israel. They're not training against Libya or Sudan. All of their life, ever since the peace treaty, against Israel. And they've always been celebrating the October, 6th of October victory over Israel. Geronimo, my question, what is the percentage you can say about the escalation to be a larger scale war? Very likely. Very, very likely. I mean, we thought for a second that, we might reach a temporary ceasefire, someone might show some sort of reasonableness within Israel. Clearly, that's not the case. I mean, their whole reaction was hate-fueled and full of vengeance. It didn't make any sense militarily, but that's how, we translate it. This is the main aim, the undeclared thing of depopulating it, even though they actually did say it sometime. But it could escalate very, very quickly as well. And Egypt has every single reason to attack Israel. From a long time ago, by the way. They can say, preemptive strike against Israel because they're trying to, threaten our national security. But they're waiting probably for the last second. Sergio Aguero question, if Hamas said take all hostages, we will leave Gaza, in return stop bombing Gaza, would Netanyahu agree to that or make an excuse and say no? Well, he's saying no to everything, Benjamin Netanyahu. He's saying no to every single thing. They had an opportunity, let's not forget, ever since the temporary ceasefire began, to extend it day by day, 3 Palestinians for 1 Israeli, and then the numbers would get bigger because obviously the Palestinian prisoners in Israel are way more than the Israeli prisoners in Gaza. But that's not, Netanyahu doesn't want any dealings. If you look at Netanyahu's history, this man is a psychopath. He didn't compromise in Israel. He didn't compromise with Zionists. Why would he compromise with Hamas? He led Israel to 5 elections in 4 years. And, it took so many resources just because he wants to stay in power. And I don't think he will. Jetmir Reka, what's about the meeting? Saudi Arabia, Qatar, UAE, Jordan, and Egypt, are they going now to support the UNRWA? I haven't read about that meeting particularly. The only interesting thing that I heard is that Erdogan is going to meet with the Egyptian president. Now, Erdogan has been unhappy with the Egyptian president since the military coup, since they took down the Muslim Brotherhood government. But now he's going to see the Egyptian president, and he's gonna sell him some of the most advanced UAVs. So clearly something's going on um, behind the curtains, right? Who are they going to use it against Egypt? Ari Magu question. Thank you, Mahmoud. I suspect Russia is strongly coveted by collective West for rich resources, and Ukraine is used as a potential load. Look, the West wants, America wants Russia. This is what people need to understand. Russia is a rich country. They are full of gas, big, and they're a threat to them. They want hegemony. You know, they still think they're in the 50s. But they're delusional. You know, the world is changing, and if you're not going to understand it in a reasonable manner, you're going to understand it on the ground. And that's what, you know, Russia's showing them. Amina Yusuf, will they be allowed to return North Gaza from Rafah? But see, that's the thing. They're killing people trying to go back to the north, although many people are still in the north. They're showing lots of bravery. People of Gaza are the bravest people on earth. The people of Gaza, they're the bravest people on earth. They've been going back to the north even after the heavy bombardment. I have never seen such bravery in my life. But they don't want them to go back to the north. Israel will make us a military move, most likely, to cut the people off from the northern part of Rafah, tell them no go zone, and make it only possible for them to push against the Egyptian borders. This is what they're probably going to do if this continues to escalate. Gift, how do you take the Tucker and Putin interview? Yeah, I just spoke about, once we finish, if you go back to the initial part of the video in the beginning, you'll know exactly what I think about it. Not the average Joe, it's good to catch you live. Although I'm late, I've been watching your video content in the last 2 months. Just wanted to say, may Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bless you and reward you immensely for your time and effort. And you, my brother, all of you, brothers and sisters. Zaima Ismail, is Hamas able to get in supplied like food and water to survive while they fight? If the civilians starve, how their own fighters can sustain the fight for much longer? Because they are prepared for a long-term war. Their tunnels are very sophisticated. They have tinned and dry food. As a matter of fact, in the previous war in 2024, some of their fighters had interviews with the networks and where they said they would share a date between them for several days and they'll survive on it. So they have things in place. Arcana Christ, did you know Bibi changed his name to be less Polish, like Regev X all changed your European last name? Yeah, I spoke about it in a video over a year ago. Netanyahu was Milikovsky, David Ben-Gurion was David Grun, Moshe Sharet was Shertok, and they claim they're the sons of Israel, the Ashkenazis of Europe, and the sons of Israel, as if they, own the land. Giovanni Di Capo, Egypt cannot back down. They have to show them they're willing to fight. Yeah, but they're gonna wait till the last second, Egypt, most likely. I mean, I can sense their strategy. Really, everyone sees what's going on, but China and Russia has begun to get more vocal and harsher in their comments to the West. To be honest with you, China and Russia have a way more reasonable, diplomatic, intact tone than any Western leader. The inflammatory leaders of the world are in the UK, in the US, in France. These are the world bullies, not Russia and China. These are the people who go and occupy other countries and dictate and think they're morally superior. And that's why they're falling down. The end of the empire. That's what's happening. Vegan Sadiq Salam, bro, what does Netanyahu mean when he said we killed 20k Hamas terrorists? Number one, I think we should be careful with the words we use to describe the Palestinian resistance. We shouldn't fall into the trap of the mainstream narrative. The terrorists are the occupiers and the oppressors and the people who support them. These are the terrorists, not the Palestinian resistance. But your notion that they killed 20,000 Hamas members, do they know what they're doing even in Gaza? They don't know. They're killing their own soldiers. They don't know what the hell they're doing. You're telling me they know how many Hamas people they killed? They're liars. Like I said in a statement he made a couple of days ago, he said that they dismantled 24 Hamas brigades. And then in the same statements he said we still have 4 left. What a liar. I mean, this is so blatant, you know what I mean? The lies. But that's the thing, they want a sign of victory, but they can't find any sign of victory, you know? They start off by celebrating, acting like they're celebrating Hanukkah. They're painting these signs, dancing in Gaza. We're building the settlement, you know? We're in Khan Yunis, the main tunnel. Al-Shifa Hospital, did you forget the Shifa Hospital? That was the accomplishment. Imagine a hospital. Imagine how barbaric and psychopathic these people are. And then they found Sinwar's shoe. And now they're telling you 20k Hamas. 20k Hamas. You don't know what the hell you're talking about. I mean, when it comes to Netanyahu and the Israel leaders, they have no idea. And they're being torn to pieces by the Palestinian resistance. Arcana Christ and Arcana Kissed. Sorry. That's saying something considering Egypt has a US pup in power at the moment. Look, don't forget that Egypt has been slowly shifting away from the US during the years, but again, they do it quietly. Most of their weapons are not coming from the US. They've increased their relations with Russia. They have weapons from North Korea and they sell them to the world. Many people don't know that. Like the 3 billion that they have from the US, they spend it on basic stuff, really. But the majority, like many hospitals and things like that. But the vast majority of their money is not spent in America only. Obviously, they keep the tie with America because, you know, you want to keep your relations open with everyone, but they're diversifying. They're not completely running America because they always, that's the thing you need to understand. America gives Egypt aid and it gives Israel aid. They always give Israel more. So if they want the same weapons, firstly, they'll delay the weapons to Egypt, give it to Israel first. Okay? If I can ask, please don't repeat messages for anyone. Don't please constantly repeat messages. But if you look at the level of weapons, they always sell Israel more. They'll stop America, they'll stop Egypt from having the same. Sometimes it's 50%. And Israel will force them to not sell Egypt the weapons that they want for. So they got sick of it. So they started diversifying. It's like, okay, you give us aid, you know. Boda, thank you very much. And so it's important to know these things. Yajiba, assalamu alaikum. What will happen to all of the orphans? Well, so many are orphans now, and they're taken by other families. The medical staff in the hospital took some of these people. You know, it's tragic what's happening. The UN just warned, UNICEF just warned of the greatest famine and malnutrition for children in the world, in Gaza, and you don't see that in the headlines. Really, Putin respects all religions and Muslims in Russia live in peace. Just look at the Chechen, how beautiful and peaceful it is now. It's a Russia territory. Yeah, look, I mean, he has, you know, very good relations. I mean, I was in Russia once in St. Petersburg for a transit, and most of them looked like they weren't Russian. Um, and yeah, it seems fine. Do you know what I mean? And they don't have this hostile tone towards minorities, like, for example, many government officials have in the UK. Hate fueling comments against minorities to bring communities against each other instead of bringing them closer. That's leadership through evil. Do you know what I mean? Divide people and spread hate between them. This is what they do in the UK, at least. Look at France. It's even worse in France. Do you know what I mean? At least Biden, you know, he has a better tone when it comes to that in the US, you know. Say what you like about Biden. Oh, he called he called Al-Sisi the Mexican president. Did you hear that? In the kitchen, thank you so much. It's very kind of you. Yeah, he called the Sisi the Mexican the Mexican president. And that's after he was questioned about his memory, and he's saying his memory is fine, his memory is fine, but then he met with the Mexican. He spoke with the Mexican, Al-Sisi. Irma Galvan, thank you for your membership firstly. This is what they have done in Africa, South America, and Central America, and of course the Middle East. They have billions of people. Of course, I mean, people forget what America did in Latin America, what the US did in Latin America. They used to have a foreign policy of the Latin America is our backyard, supporting cartels, big time thugs, military coups constantly against the people. People forget Latin America, you know, and because obviously the highlight, people forget about the DRC, right? Central Africa and what they're doing. It's like it's as if these countries don't exist. And what France is doing there, what the US is doing there. You know what I mean? China, on the other hand, is building these places in Africa, sometimes Russia too, and they're giving them money for free. Miguel Garcia, question: do you think that the Israeli-Palestinian will potentially have some kind of role in the resistance? I saw some surveys stating that 20% of them support the war from Netanyahu. I'm not sure how accurate that is, and you need to bear in mind, when it comes to the Palestinian citizens of Israel, they have their role. The Palestinian citizens in the West Bank, they have their role, and the Palestinian citizens of Gaza, they have their role. The role of the Palestinian citizens in Israel is to remain in their land. That's their main role. And Israel took really harsh measures to stop any kind of sympathy with Gaza ever since this genocide began. And I'm in constant communication with, loved ones and relatives. People were going to prison for liking a comment, posting a general verse from the Quran, for example. People are still in prison now, 4 months in, for sympathizing. Imagine. Israel imprisoned university professors, Israeli Jewish university professors, for criticizing what the IDF is doing in Gaza, let alone the Palestinian citizens of Israel. So in terms of resistance, it's not their role, in my opinion, and people need to differentiate and understand the different levels when it comes to, because Israel in many ways, it's a very awkward situation. You have Palestinians living in Israel, what Israel likes to call Arab citizens of Israel, because they don't want to admit that there is anything Palestinians, and most of the Palestinians inside of Israel or historical Palestine claim and say that they are Palestinian. You have the West Bank, apartheid, blatant apartheid. Obviously, there's discrimination against the Palestinian citizens of Israel, Class B, no matter what they want to tell you. Yeah, better situation than Gaza and the West Bank, of course, because that's blatant apartheid and you're killing people left, right, and center. Well, of course, staying alive is better than being killed every day, of course. But saying that you have a nation state law, Israel belongs to the Jewish people. So no one can say, the Hasbara puppets will tell you, oh no, you have some people, Arab citizens of Israel will say, they work with Hasbara, will tell you, oh no, we live peacefully, we live, and then they'll go with the IDF in Gaza. It's like you're shooting yourself in the foot. We need to be honest here. And honesty is, there's inequality. That's the cause of the problem. And you need to solve it from its roots. So I don't think they will have a potential role in terms of the only resistance is like vocal resistance, protesting and whatever. But Israel already stopped that. Their campaign to stop it was successful because they went on mass imprisonment of many activists since the beginning. Anyone who showed any sympathy, and reached a stage where many people just weren't saying anything, including many Israelis. Lots of people challenged it and took it to the Supreme Court to try and have some sort of protests, whether Jews or Arabs. And now there are protests, but very limited. And it's like one police officer per one person. And if you're going to the process, they'll ask you, where are you from? They don't allow people to come in from the other side, from outside the city, for example, if it's... so I hope that clarifies. Seems to be escalating in Iraq at the moment. Yeah, well, the US is great at adding fuel to the fire, aren't they? Nariman the Khatib. So there are a lot of chatter about Sisi going along with taking people into Sinai. I'm skeptical, but I understand why people don't trust Sisi. Look, I think it's not about trust or personal views. It's about... Anas, thank you very much, by the way. It's very kind of you. It's about reading the actual political scene, the military scene, understanding countries' lines when it comes to national security, reading between the lines, because Egypt likes to speak diplomatically but do things without speaking too much, similar to Saudi Arabia in some cases. And again, that's not to say we are with them, we're against them, criticize, no criticism. I'm just talking about how we establish an understanding. You establish an understanding from actions on the ground. If Israeli security officials are telling you Egypt broke every single line of their Camp David treaty. And Egypt is saying nice things, you know? Clearly, there's tensions between them. The question is, what will be the tipping point? In my opinion, the tipping point of any sovereign country intervening, unlike, you know, many other people don't say this, they say other stuff, but in my opinion, it's when their national security, their national integrity and sovereignty is under threat or is about to be under imminent threat. And again, you can counter that by saying they had an excuse to take a countermeasure. Even by international law, you can take preemptive. This is what most Western countries have been doing all of their life, preemptive strikes. And based on lies. Saddam, they went for weapons of mass destruction. He had nothing. But it was a preemptive strike against a lie. You know what I mean? Even Afghanistan, like Taliban, when they blamed Osama bin Laden for the 9/11 false flag that they did, they told them, if you provide us with evidence against Osama bin Laden, we'll cooperate with you. And we don't agree on anyone attacking any other country from within our territories. People don't remember that. They just remember the shouting from the US presidents and the brainwashing. And hey, presto, we're at war. Killing their own citizens, using them as cannon fodder, and bringing them back to their country addicted to opioids and prescription medication and dying. What a great way to make money for the military-industrial complex and the pharma cartel. Shakti, US says they do not support Israel attacking Rafah, but can their word be trusted? Well, they've shown that none of their words can be trusted. I mean, you wouldn't trust them if they cough. But the fact that they're saying that, you know, is a different step. Saying it blatantly, we won't support unless it's like calculated and carefully planned. But don't forget, they're not happy. They're not in a great condition at the moment. The United States didn't want it to reach to this stage. They want conflicts on a low heat. They don't like things getting out of hand. Israel took it out of hand. And they already did things that the US doesn't want. And they're stuck. They want to save apartheid Israel, the US. But they don't want to risk everything in the region. Geronimo, is it true news regarding Iranian statement that Afghan Taliban is ready to fight the war in Gaza? Look, I don't see how Taliban is going to reach Gaza. Not like they need people, by the way, to fight, you know. Clearly, they're showing that they're way more than capable. If anyone needs soldiers, it's Israel. But Taliban, I don't think they will do anything really. Amir D, to be honest, brother, I don't expect anything anymore from the Egyptian side. Until now, it's a partner in crime. The only side which has significance is the axis of resistance. Yeah, look, I personally don't have faith in, you know, I share a very similar sentiment. I'm just here to kind of really look at the picture, analyze it, and give my opinion on it in a non-biased way as much as possible. Sabir, thank you so much. May Allah bless you as well. And the only people who proved that they participate in this in action and publicly are Yemen, Hezbollah, the resistance of Iraq, and backed by them, Iran. although Iran doesn't participate as directly. That's why it has its allies. Melgon, salam everyone. Mahmoud, an update on the Jordanian border when many Palestinian Jordanian did a protest. The border in Jordan, it's like a brick wall. I mean, they prevent anyone from, even if they have lands, from going anywhere near them. They'll have like eye scanners, the security services in Jordan, and fingerprints for anyone trying to come close to the border. If the borders weren't as secure, just the people would flood Israel without any armies. Mir Akbar, is it true that the US and UK bombed in Yemen only in empty areas? Mostly because the Ansarullah said that they had already used the locations that they attacked. The dangerous escalation was when they attacked a civil coastal city that's highly dense and populated and many tourists visit. You know, thankfully we haven't had many casualties in Yemen. We hope, you know, we don't want to reach the stage, and it's already shameful that they're even attacking in Yemen. If you should be using any forces against this genocidal satanic death cult. Rebecca, hello from the United States, love your videos. Thank you so much, really appreciate it, and welcome to the live stream. Big Tido, is Saudi Arabia even a Muslim country? They legalized alcohol in there. Yeah, look, I mean, the argument when it comes to, I think, Islam and politics, I mean, Islam as a religion gave guidelines to ruling, right? It didn't tie the survival or existence of the religion in political power. By the way, people need to understand that religion doesn't need political power, but religion orders you to, if you have political power, to be just. And there's something in Arabic called qist, which is ensuring justice is implemented. Now, you can argue they're doing none of that, right? And I think, you know, many Muslim countries, their stance is shameful, really, when it comes to this. The Arab countries and Muslim countries. Belka Chati, please, can you recommend a charity to send money to for the displaced and orphans? Look, I wouldn't recommend outright charity because you know, I'm not affiliated with one, but what I would always say is that check the charities are legit, valid, registered, and I would recommend you check their level of transparency as well, if they publish like who's running them and all of these things. I tried a couple of times to partner, but I didn't get like responses. If I do, you will see me posting something. Saber, thank you very much. No, man, Netanyahu is not Orthodox Jew. No, he declares he's an atheist. Okay, we've reached the end of the questions. If anyone has any more question, if you could please send me any questions or comments before we finish the live stream. BCFC Ireland question: if Lebanon knows an attack is coming, should the men of his full attack first? Look, you need to understand that they're getting criticism internally for even participating in this, because many people would say, like, we don't need this, we're already in a bad financial situation, you know, and they have been careful to not let it escalate to an all-out war, but at the same time take away some of the Israeli army's forces' energy and take it away from Gaza. So they've played it really cleverly. If they're gonna attack first, that will play to the benefit of Hezbollah, because Hezbollah would then say, Len, thank you very much. Then Hezbollah would say, look, they crossed the line here. And now we are going to retaliate more, because so far Hezbollah and Israel, they've been playing like, you know, ping pong within the lines, right? You know, you attack to this mileage, I attack to this mileage, and, you know, they haven't crossed the line so much. And when they do, you know, when they cross a bit of the line, the other party crosses it a little bit of it. But, you know, it's easy for any side to take any type of action as a pretext to, look, you know, that was too much. I'm going to go against you all out now. So I think, you know, if Israel does make a big attack, it'll play to their benefit. Anna Greenfield, welcome to Channel Talk. Can the people go back north? Do you mean North Israel or North Gaza? Because if you mean North Israel, the settlements, they're still not safe and there's problems with them. If you mean North Gaza, as in the Palestinians going to North Gaza, they can, but Israel tries to restrict it as much as possible. Muhammad Saeed Abdullah, do you think Egypt will end up in war? Will Israel finally cause them to react? Well, look, Israel is doing every unreasonable thing it can do as a state. I mean, like I said, but that's the thing, they were based on an unreasonable ideology. That's the thing here. So the argument that Israel can be reasonable is a weak argument, unfortunately, because they were brought up on an unreasonable ideology. That ideology is Zionism, a superior race controlling an inferior race, and we are the chosen ones and they are the others. That a backward, delusional ideology. And if they had any type of reason, that they wouldn't have done what they did. So they can potentially reach a stage where Egypt will say, you know what, we've had enough. And listen, they're prepared for that day. They are prepared for that day, Egypt. If push comes to shove, they need to do it, they'll do it. And they will hit Israel really bad. I mean, I don't think Israel would survive, you know, a war with Egypt. Yusra Nasser, does Biden's health pose even more difficulty to come to a ceasefire? Yeah, I think so. I mean, the man is calling, you know, Sisi, the president of Mexico. He's a funny guy, Biden. He's so hilarious. But it just proves how America runs and what the position of the president is. A puppet. Mir, thank you very much. He's a puppet. Nothing more, nothing less. I mean, there was even a theory about him being a robot, you know, which obviously we don't believe, but he's not doing anything really. But what's doing it is the US system, right? The state, the deep state, or the state. They control. I mean, Barack Obama said how many restrictions he had when he was the president, you know. And boy, when I heard Putin, and then you can compare him to Biden, boy, man, it's like you're talking about someone with knowledge, with substance, in comparison to a person who should be sitting in a nursing home getting medication and mashed food. Mohammed, thank you very much. Anarchist, but maybe he can negotiate peace between Mexican government and cartels by accident, maybe. Auntie K. Starrett, do you think when Israel finally falls, it will help destabilize other settler states like USA, Canada, etc.? I think this is why they uphold Israel to uphold their settler colonialism. Look, the difference between Israel and countries like the United States and Canada is to a level. When you talk about Canada and the United States, obviously in the US, the indigenous people of the US are still ignored to this day. But if we talk about an overall type of thing, I mean, in terms of rights, put aside, and I'm not saying it's right to put aside or not right to put aside, but if you put aside the historical land issues that they had with the indigenous people of America, people can come, people can go, people have equal rights. You can immigrate, you can go out, you can, okay, there's obviously, you know, you have the argument of the police state about the racism, right, systematically, like, you know, the level of black, you know, prisoners in America, for example, and, you know, the state of highly black populated areas in the United States. It always, like, the Palestinians of Israel always shared similarity with the black Africans of America. That's why hip-hop music was so famous, you know. But they're different than Israel. I mean, where does the United States of America, apart from like systematic police violence, which is global, and you have a gun problem and you have lots of problems, okay? When did it throw a ton bomb on a neighborhood in California or something? You know, they didn't have that. But the problem is Israel symbolizes the last kind of neo-colonial state for them, and if they fall, or when they fall as an apartheid supremacist state, it will be the end of their colony days. I mean, they're being kicked out of Africa slowly. African states are talking about unions now, you know? There's more national leaders in Africa that don't belong to France, that don't belong to previous colonies. And the same thing will happen eventually in the Middle East. Now, again, it's not just about the state, it's also about tyranny or authoritarianism. So if it's not like if this goes away, oh, that's it, everything. Well, we're never going to have like complete justice here. It's an ongoing thing that people constantly need to speak up about. Like, you know, they think the liberties that we enjoy at the moment came from nothing. No, it came from sacrifice. Whether in the US or in Britain, you know, you had the Magna Carta. But the deep state always tries to take these freedoms away. Sabr, thank you very much. I really appreciate that. Anyone sending super thanks, thank you so much. Really means a lot. Um, Philip Coos. Mahmoud, do you think George Galloway will win the Rochdale by-election and make a difference to the UK stance on Israel? Look, George Galloway has always been very vocal about Israel, is a very brave man. I think now he has the momentum to do something. But in terms of this effect on the foreign policy of the United Kingdom, I mean, if Scotland isn't able to affect the foreign policy, do you think Rochdale would be able to do that? But he will be a good voice there, similar to any good voices that are in Westminster. I think the biggest problem in the UK is the fact that Jeremy Corbyn didn't use the momentum that he had to make a change and quit Labour for good and start a new party that's for the people, ditch the corrupt Labour and the corrupt two-party system in the UK, get that momentum and go full throttle and create a real alternative. But Jeremy Corbyn missed that opportunity. I'm not sure why, because he had the option to. But saying that, you know, George Galloway will be a very good voice in Westminster, a voice that needs to be heard. Koopa Koop, thank you. I'm glad to hear that. You watch every day. Amir, the Egyptians started calling. I think we're gonna have a joke all night about this. Egyptians started calling their president El Mexique. The Mexican. Yeah, I'm not surprised. The Mexican president. FY, biggest problem in the UK politics is the Israel lobby. Yes, and that's the least talked about subject. Although there was an undercover report 5 years ago about the Israeli lobby, how they affect. Sabir, thank you. And how far they reach. AIPAC buys politicians. Didn't you hear that the guy, Nasser, I think, who was offered to run against Rashid Tlaib for 20 million? 20 million US dollars. Now imagine any average person, you know, was having a rough financial time and, you know, AIPAC comes in, hey, here's 20 million, just go and run against that person and we'll support you and the media will support you. Many people would, but hardly anyone would, you know, take a position against them. And most politicians in the UK are corrupt. Come on, who's genuine from them? They're all actors. They're salespeople for the powers that are behind them. I mean, in COVID, it was evident that they were selling for the pharma industry. You know, they're operating for the Zionist lobby. Sean Hunt, why is there no Arab lobby like the Israeli lobby? Well, there are lobbies and they are effective to an extent, right? But the difference with the Israeli lobby is it serves more of the traditional part of that country. Like, for example, why is the Israeli lobby successful in the UK and the US? Well, it's because they are colonial powers, you know, history of enslavement and, you know, thinking that they're racially superior and supreme. And Israel is the same, so they have more of a sentiment with them. Why should we support, you know, non-white Palestinians or Muslims or whatever? So they have a sentiment with that. That's why they are more strong, because the people who they're with have an affiliation with their ideology, their racist, supremacist ideology. Van Moore, Meta is considering stricter censorship of the word Zionist, a move that could hamper the ability of billions of people to criticize Israel and the ongoing war in Gaza. Well, they already have so many restrictions, and again, Israel they're constantly trying to, if you see their moves, make anti-Zionist, anti-Semitic. Now, obviously, there's a problem already with the term anti-Semitic because it's connecting Judaism to a race rather than a religion. But it was more popular. It started to become popular in the beginning of the 20th century. Anti-Semitism, maliciously as well, to link the Jewish people to a land, to make the criticism of that land anti-Jewish. And now they want to do it with Zionist. But look, everyone's seeing through it. Do you know what I mean? So censor all you like. We'll get an alternative. What if they want to start that? We'll have an alternative. There are many other networks. It doesn't begin or end with one social network. We'll find somewhere else. We'll talk, and we'll be more free in talking. And they will lose. They will lose followers. They will lose financially. They're not the be all and end all. Rockabilly, thank you so much for this. Okay, let's call it a night, guys. It was nice speaking to you, and thank you very much for your contribution. Sorry if I didn't respond to everyone. Just tried to kind of deal with the relevant questions to the subject as much as possible. So thank you very much for being with me. I'm gonna be here every night at 10 GMT, 10 p.m. GMT, apart from the video that I will post to you regularly, probably a little bit shorter than usual, because some of my videos used to stretch for about 25 minutes. Now they're going to be a little bit shorter, more brief. We'll talk about Jimmy. Thank you so much. So kind of you, everyone, with super thanks. So I'll make them brief to speak about a certain subject, and I will keep this live stream to open it obviously for you to contribute and share your thoughts. Whether we agree or disagree, it's not a problem. And we'll hopefully see you soon then tomorrow. And thank you all for your comments, and have a lovely evening, day, or afternoon, depending on where you are. And I'll see you soon in the next video. Take care.